Hello mech warriors! Today we'll be looking at the lead mech from TMC's Hired Steel, Eques 1, the Shadowhawk. We'll be doing a comparison between this mech and a standard Shadowhawk 2D, and then I'll be going over what I think could be done to improve this unit. So the first thing I notice when I look at these two mechs is they're just way under-armored. A cavalry mech at 55 tons should not be armored like a Locust, which is what these are. Having only 5 armor on the legs is unbelievably bad. This thing can have its mobility taken out by a large laser. That is pretty unacceptable, especially considering that this is the command mech. The leader of the lance, the most important person there, is the one piloting this thing. Eques 1 does have something that I like. It has 2 jump jets in the legs, which gives it a chance to have something non-critical taken out of the leg, which is great. Standard Shadowhawks have the jump jets in the center and side torsos. That's really not optimal. Something that's especially unforgivable in my opinion is the fact that they only have 6 armor on the cockpit. That means that the incredibly important leader of the lance is only protected by a measly 9 points. A single PPC shot to the head will instantly kill him. One good thing that the Eques 1 did was increase the armor protection on the side torsos to 10 points, although it is at the cost of the 12 on the center torso, which would protect this against a PPC and an SRM2 hit. The mech also has an anti-missile system, which is an okay idea, but the problem is that this thing has so little armor that investing in extra defenses on board the mech would just be better spent elsewhere. It's not going to stop you from getting shot by really common weapons like autocannons and lasers. I think it's important to determine what era we are in before we go and make any changes, and what kind of tech base we're dealing with. So we're looking at standard tech for Inner Sphere, but it doesn't state the year. So we'll have to confirm the year by looking at the equipment that's available. Now, this mech has Endo Steel, which is available around early 3040s, and more importantly, it has an anti-missile system. That allows us to date the mech to 3045. At the very earliest. It's probably a little bit later than that, considering that brand new tech probably wouldn't be falling into the hands of a mercenary company, so we'll call it maybe around 3046, 3047. Now, I've looked at the other mechs in the Lance as well, and one thing I've noticed is that none of them have double heat sinks, which is insane to me, because in 3047, double heat sinks have become kind of the new standard. A lot of mechs obviously are gonna still be on the single heat sinks, but I would think that if you're investing in new technology like anti-missile systems and ultra autocannons, these kinds of things, you would probably want to invest in buying, I don't know, a couple hundred units of double heat sinks and replacing all of the heatsink kits in your mechs. Double heat sinks unlock a lot of potential in a mech design. It is probably the single largest upgrade that you can possibly get. And these mechs have been purpose-built. The original 2D is not an Endo Steel mech, which means that every single part of this mech has already been replaced with Endo Steel parts. You would think that when they were doing the factory rebuild, they might have installed some double heat sinks in the thing. But we're going to assume that the mercenary company is operating in such a way that it doesn't have access to double heat sinks, but that it can get the latest cutting-edge 3045 tech other than double heat sinks. The Eques 1 has put a lot more of its power into the SRMs, focusing very heavily on them. 2 SRM6s in the left torso versus 2 SRM2s on the original Shadowhawk 2D. Now, it does give up the LRM5, but it keeps the medium lasers in both arms. One other big critique that I have is that it has comms gear, but only 1 ton of it, which gives it no benefit in terms of tabletop rules. You need to have at least 3 tons in order for comms gear to have any effect. So, the first thing that we need to do is just put way more armor on this thing. I've stripped out all of the weapons except the medium lasers. Gonna keep those, I think, and we're just gonna maximize armor. Now, with a 55-ton mech, you don't need the last half ton if you're using standard armor, because it's only worth 1 point. This is a lot more reasonable. This is what I like to see. And in my opinion, if you're gonna invest in jump jets, you might as well go whole hog. I'm gonna take an extra 2 jump jets. Now we've got a jumping capability of 5 hexes. So, what are we bringing for weapons? Well, you know what? I actually like the LRM5 that the original Shadowhawk has. It gives it some poke at long range, and Eques Lance seems to be very balanced between its long and short range capabilities. They've got a Gauss rifle, they've got an AC-10 on the Hunchback rather than an AC-20, a lot more flexible, and they've got an LRM boat with some medium lasers, the classic catapult. Eques Lance seems to like having AMS and stuff like that, so we'll keep it in there. It's not terribly heavy, and it can act as a backup machine gun up close. I actually like LRM-5s for giving a little bit more flexibility. Eques Lance has an AC-10 on the Hunchback rather than an AC-20. They've got an LRM boat, and they've got a rifleman with a Gauss rifle. So a couple of LRM-5s is going to give Eques 1 the ability to stand back at range and rain missiles down on his opponents in safety with his long-range units. Now, Eques Lance also seems to want to have communications equipment on the Shadowhawk, so we're going to go ahead and give 3 tons of comms equipment. This will give a significant increase in their tactical flexibility. In game terms, it gives them a +1 to initiative, which will give them an edge against the competition. Now, a Shadowhawk isn't a Shadowhawk without a big shoulder cannon. So instead of the autocannon, we're actually going to go for a large laser. Now, we've used up all of our tonnage, but the mech with a large laser is now looking pretty spicy. It's producing 12 heat with its long-range complement, and a hell of a lot more than that with the close-in weapons. But Eques 1 is the most experienced commander of the Lance, so I think he can probably handle it. What we'll do is we'll strip off a little bit of armor, like so, and now we can afford an extra heatsink. If we didn't have to take the AMS, I would slot in another heatsink and a half ton of armor instead, but we're gonna keep it on there. That's what it is. So there you have it, Mech Warriors. My Eques 1 versus TMC's Eques 1. Which one would you rather pilot? Now, obviously, this Shadowhawk has a lot less firepower overall than this one, but what good is firepower if you're dead? If you have the armor of a Locust and only 5/8 movement to keep you protected from enemy fire, there's no chance of you getting in with an SRM-6 and 2 medium lasers. I'm sorry, it's just not happening. This mech will be blown to pieces by LRMs and autocannon 5s by the time it even gets within range 6. Whereas this mech has 5 jump jets, meaning that it can get that 3 TMM no matter what the terrain looks like. It's able to fire off at long range with the LRMs. It can fight at medium range with a large laser by pushing heat pretty good, and once it gets in close, the 2 medium lasers kind of replace the large laser. The 2 medium lasers being fired might be its like jumping complement. It jumps behind somebody and fires off the 2 mediums. That's exactly 11 heat, so it will remain heat neutral if it does that, or it can just fire the large laser and gain a little bit of heat if it's trying to maybe pierce open some back armor. The main thing is that this mech can now intercede on behalf of the LRM boat and the Gauss rifle-toting rifleman and actually get into close fighting and stay there, stick to the enemies, and perform the job of a cavalry mech, whereas this one isn't even going to be able to fight a Locust. 2 or 3 Locusts would rip this thing apart in short order. And I have a feeling that the scene at the end of part 3, where the LRMs are coming in, we're about to see that. Eques 1 is probably going to get ripped apart by the 30 LRMs that are coming in at it, even with the anti-missile system. Thanks for watching, Mech Warriors. Please leave a comment down below, like, share, subscribe, really helps the channel out, and have a great day, everybody.